Will the market go up or down? Should you lock in or float? Find out this and more with Master of the Markets, hosted by Barry Habib of MBS Highway. Brought to you by Paramount Residential Mortgage Group.
In today's mortgage environment, providing our wholesale community with the best combination of product, pricing, technology, and service is paramount to their success. PRMG, built by originators for originators.
Welcome to another edition of Master of the Markets. I'm Barry Habib, and MBS Highway is created exclusively for Mortgage News Network, and it's brought to you by our friends at PRMG who are working for your best interest. Man, the FHFA saga continues. Mark Calabria and the FHA being quite difficult. And we are in a condition right now that they are really hurting the consumer. This is ultimately where the cost is going to fall. And it's a multifaceted cost. It's not just in dollars. It's in the ability to actually do transactions, whether they be a purchase transaction, a refinance, or most importantly, a cash out refinance, which could be so beneficial during this time. This is already affecting areas where jumbo products are being limited. Credit guidelines are tightening, and the main focus of this is due to the fact that because of COVID-19, there's concern about people making their payments. The forbearance issue, which can be a very helpful thing and a humanitarian thing for people who need it, is being abused. But what's most important is the FHFA, who runs Fannie and Freddie, their handling of this. So let's take a look at what happens, and let's use an analogy. Imagine there's an apartment building, and there's tenants in their apartment building, and there's an owner. But the person who collects the payments, who collects the rent, is a superintendent there. So they go around and every month they collect the rents and then they just hand them over to the owner of the building. That's kind of what their function. They get paid for doing that, for making the collections and giving it to the owner. They have no ownership. They have no responsibility. But now because of COVID-19, people are losing their jobs. So certainly no fault of the superintendent or of the owner or of the tenants. People have a tough time because work is forced to be shut down. As a result, government says, here's the CARES Act. People don't have to make their rent payments anymore. The owner says, I still want my payments. So superintendent, you have to continue to forward the payments out of your pocket, even though you're not getting them from the tenants, even though none of this was your fault. That's what's happening in the mortgage industry right now. Servicers have to go ahead and continue to advance payments. Now, HUD, FHA, VA type loans, they figured it out. What they did is what they said, okay, we know you're going to forward the payments, but we'll create a facility for you to borrow against, so you can borrow against the facility, you'll forward the payments, and this way we'll settle it up once things kind of calm down. That was well thought out. The FHFA, totally different story. What they've said is that you have to advance the payments and we're going to turn a blind eye. Now, because of pressure we've all been putting on good people like David Stevens and the NBA, Bob Rokesmith, and people like Chris Whalen who've been writing about it, and many members of Congress put some pressure on the FHFA and Mark Calabria. His response really comes up very short. He says, okay, you still got to advance payments, but we'll cap it at 4 months. That's an enormous burden, but you know what? That's only principal and interest. Beyond the 4 months, they still have to remain paying taxes and insurance. But the big problem is something called a first payment default because of forbearance. You see, this forbearance issue has caused it so that if you close a loan, it's awfully dangerous on a Fannie or Freddie loan. It's very dangerous because if the customer doesn't make the first payment, goes into forbearance, and that's called a first payment default, you can't sell the loan. So you're going to get stuck with it on your warehouse line. So it's giving lenders a very big problem. Now the FHFA's response, they said, okay, you know what, we'll help you out, not on cash out refinances, only on owner occupied purchases and rate and term refinances. We'll let you take out enough money for closing costs above that. But if you want to give that to us, we're going to charge you, get this, 700 basis points. Now, if it's a first-time home buyer, we'll help them out. Only 500 basis points. You know what 500 basis points is, or 700 basis points? Let's take a $300,000 loan. 700 basis points is $21,000. You know how much a typical mortgage company makes on a loan? About a half a point. So a $300,000 loan, if I close it, I can make $1,500. But if they do forbearance, I lose $21,000. You know, realtors who are trying to kind of game the system and tell people to do it, I've been pushing back to realtors and saying, okay, so the real estate company would make 6%, let's just say, on the transaction. But what if they went into forbearance? Then the real estate agent would literally have to pay for the entire home purchase. That's the same ratios pretty much of what we're talking about here. So what's going to happen? What's the solution? You can either not close the loan, try and play it safe. That's not that much fun. You can close the loan and hold it if you have enough cash to see if they make the first payment. If they do, I could sell it now. I still have to advance the next 3 payments or 4. So if they go into forbearance, right, or 4 payments. But if they don't make that payment and they go into forbearance or try to go into forbearance because they haven't technically sold the loan, it's not eligible for forbearance. So it's kind of a game of chicken that the lender might decide to play. And then they could say, I can threaten you with now hitting your credit hard or starting foreclosure proceedings. So at least they have some recourse, they have some ability to counteract this and see what happens. But it's still awfully messy and all the time that's involved in this. Or they could say, hey, look, a certain percentage of loans are going to go into this. Let's increase the price for all loans so that we're not kind of taking a guess at which one's going to cause forbearance and cause this 700 basis point hit. Let's raise the price on all of our loans. Who knows? Maybe 0.5% in price, 0.75% in price, an eighth in rate, a quarter in rate, whatever it is, across the board, so that the loans that close, okay, we'll make more money on those, but that'll cover us for the ones that we have to pay the 700 basis point hit. What the FHFA has done here is made it harder to obtain a mortgage and more expensive, just at a time when people need the money most. He's made it much more difficult to do a cash out refinance and pay off your debts just at the time when people need it the most. What you've got to do is contact your representative, because this is insane what's going on here. By the way, you should follow us on MBS Highway. Get on board. We've been helping people navigate through these crazy times. We come out the other end of this. It's going to be so good. It'll take a little bit of time to get there, but keep the faith. Things will be better. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
PRMG continues to provide our wholesale partners across the nation with better technology, better product, better pricing, and better service. Our nationally recognized brand is more than just an image. It is a symbol of integrity. PRMG, built by originators for originators. Be sure to click on the link below for your free 30-day MBS Highway trial.
This is Mortgage News Network.